Okay. Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. And if we just start with some very brief, I mean, we know each other, but if just some very brief introductions. I'm Stephen. I worked on NFT DAO, and then after NFT DAO, I became involved in the wider community, particular Swarm, and I've done a lot of documentation and GitHub and tracking. So Jonathan, maybe just
Yeah, I'm Jonathan. I started hanging out in the After Town Hall book club a few months ago, and I've just been getting slowly drawn into the community, and now getting involved in Gimbal Playground and Swarm and Catalyst Alliance. So I'm not running a project, but I run my own web business, and yeah, have ambitions to get into blockchain development of some kind, some project somewhere. So yeah, still finding my way, but here and involved.
Do Mindflow?
Oh, hi. My name is Ana Maria. I'm half of New Mindflow, and I do a lot of things.
We both do, yeah. I think most of us here are NFT DAO refugees in this meeting today. At least 5 of us, yeah. 5 out of 6. So we have a background in filmmaking and app development and game development, and we've been involved with Project Catalyst since mid-late February. Most of our involvement has been with NFT DAO, as it's true for most of us here today, I think. And that lasted till about the beginning of June. And then we continued with our own Cardano NFT project, which is live at the moment as a pre-launch or whatever you want to call it. So we have some experience already in the practical side of NFT projects on Cardano as well. We have some development partners, so we're not doing the development ourselves, but we've been involved with mostly all the aspects of designing and launching and minting NFTs on Cardano. And yeah, I guess that's it for a short.
That's great. That's great. That's very helpful for people who watch this afterwards. So I'm going to post it online for people to watch. So Dan, would you just like to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here. I've been also involved in NFT DAO. Going to skip that part now. My background is in business analysis and agile project development. I also worked as a Scrum Master. I've been working within the blockchain space since 2017, like late 16, and in Catalyst, obviously since NFT DAO, but now also with another project, Secret Dex, where we also look into creating a kind of distributed organization with a governance layer, and that's obviously why I'm interested in here today. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Dan. And Tyler, would like to say some words?
Yeah, also a ex-NFT DAO person. And I'm also working with Dan with Secret Dex and the Autonomous Creator Organization and the Tarot reading NFTs. And my background is in, I guess, media development, film production, some web design, UX design, and it's like agile development in general. I've been involved with lots of different projects, mostly around media, like the intersection of media and technology somewhere. I got involved with blockchain probably like 2016, but it was mostly just like speculating and trading. I didn't actually start trying to design or build anything in the space until 2020 or so.
That's great. So we're meeting here today to discuss a topic that came up in the Catalyst Alliance Discord channel, or actually I think the last meeting, which is tracking effort and merit on NFTs and social media and SourceCred, and maybe testing that out in the Catalyst Alliance. And our first agenda item is looking at various aspects of this, and we'll start with NFTs. So I don't know, Mindflow, would you like to talk about how you might track things in NFTs, or just start the discussion there?
Yeah, we're actually working a few days ago on a project that could serve probably as the basis of a prototype or an early attempt at what we're trying to do. So we've been contacted by the organizers of the Catalyst Idea Fest to design an award system for the Idea Fest, the Catalyst Idea Fest that is about to take place in a couple of days. And our thoughts were that could serve as a prototype for a wider system of recognition of NFT or FT, a fungible token based system of recognition. Because for the Idea Fest, for instance, we're looking at both fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens, so NFTs to awards both. Well, there's actually three groups that we identified: the presenters of the proposals themselves, the organizers, and the attendees, the public that's going to attend. So it's obviously, like everything going on in Catalyst so far, it's an experiment.
So it's like a process of, I mean, I don't know if Jonathan, you saw the SourceCred meeting we had last Friday, and I think Daniela there was talking about processes of discovery. So I'm just thinking, New Mindflow, you're doing a kind of a process of discovery in terms of how to recognize people using NFTs.
Exactly. It's more about the recognition part. Our little experiment here will not involve so much the tracking of contributions part. So there will be some tracking in the form of votes. So what we're trying to do is, first of all, we're not giving out any awards for proposals themselves, right? So that's the job of the CAs and the voting public in Catalyst to figure out. Our objective with this award system is to recognize and highlight presenters and the presentation of ideas within Idea Fest itself. So not proposals in general.
And to encourage participation in possible future events.
Exactly. Basically, that's the main objective, encouraging participation in future events. That's why we came up with this system. On the surface, it's about highlighting, but on a deeper level, it's about engaging future participants and from future funds into possibly wanting to engage more with the Idea Fest. Because, for instance, for now, I think less than 20% of all the proposals have indicated that they want to participate in the Idea Fest. So that would be the main objective, to increase participation of both proposals and attendees from voters. We obviously don't have numbers on that yet, but
you mentioned that it's recognition more than tracking, but you also said there's some tracking related to voting. What do you mean by that?
Well, what we mean by that is we're planning to organize at the end of the Idea Fest form or a poll to gather votes from the voting public that's going to participate, from the attendees of the Idea Fest. This will probably also include other proposals in order to have a sufficient number of votes in case not enough people show up for the Idea Fest. So at this first iteration, it will probably include proposals voting on other presentations as well. But the main objective is to gather votes from the voting public, from the attendees. So we'll have some sort of a form, some sort of a poll that will track, like I said, not the proposals themselves, but the presentation of the proposals in the fest.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you mean by the presentation? I guess people are going to be presenting Idea Fest. Do the polls gauge like what the public's reaction are to the ideas when they're presented? Is that what you mean, or is it simply to acknowledge that they're participating in Idea Fest, I guess?
Well, we have 3 tiers of recognitions. One is a general participation award.
Yep.
So that's going to be handed out to everybody who is going to participate as a presenter, at least. Then there's a second tier group by category of proposals being presented. And so these last 2 tiers are going to be based on that feedback we gather from the audience, basically. So yeah, that to answer your question, it will be a way to gauge the presentations themselves. Yeah.
So in the context of our discussion, so I'm trying to keep it a bit more concise because we're talking about tracking, but this is obviously one aspect of tracking which is more orientated towards immediate recognition in terms of the award ceremony. So maybe we can just make that. Jonathan, would you have any thoughts on that type of recognition? I know there's other types, but do you have any thoughts that come to you on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of my drive for coming into it was that I was hearing people who I could recognize as being very valuable in the community, saying that they are putting out all this effort and there's no recognition and there's no reward, and all that is sort of tied up within winning a proposal, where actually the whole value is much wider. So I was just thinking about all the different ways that we could be recognizing people to then reward them exactly with some sort of non-fungible or potentially fungible down the road as well token. So the sort of things that I was sketching out are, this is going to be happening in so many different corners of the ecosystem. How do we gather them in, and how do we collect them? And there, I don't think there's one system to rule them all, sort of thing. So the ideas I was having were around so obviously there's going to be NFTs handed out for the Ideas Fest now, which is an additional one since I last gathered my ideas. But then there's SourceCred have also issued rewards for community members, and then we've got the Kudos bots that we're playing with on TCA. That could be spread out wider to the Catalyst groups, Discord groups, and that's just a if somebody likes something that somebody else has done, you give them an honor point, and that's a very splattergun approach of just gathering some idea on who's valuable, who's valued in the community. There's a Cardano project Catalyst Discord roles as well, so people get assigned roles if they're particularly active, and that could be on the Catalyst board or in Gimbal Labs or Swarm or the Israeli community board as well. And then of course the CAs need recognizing, and the veteran CAs as well. So that could, there may be, and I could easily see there being a non-fungible for those. Having participated as a CA, you get one, and then maybe as a veteran, you get awarded another. And also as if you get awarded to the Catalyst Circle now, that's new. It's another, obvious rewarding place. And then also people who've won proposals have obviously put in work and come through a system of vetting already, so their value is there to see. And I was trying to think about, how do we, if we're rewarding people with NFTs, do the NFTs accrue value in themselves? But then can we remove that value once it moves between people? So if someone sends you their NFT for being a Catalyst, a veteran Catalyst community advisor, the value should stay with the origin, surely. That's the sort of thinking that I'm stumbling up against.
I think there's
Dan?
So
sorry, Dan.
yeah, sorry, Steve.
No,
No, go ahead.
I was just briefly going to mention that made me think of vesting periods, where you, if you hold a token, you have to hold it for a certain period of time, otherwise it loses value. But I think you can also, I mean, Dan, you might be able to comment on this. I think you can have personalize the holding of NFTs more, can't you? I'm not sure. To Dan, maybe you would like to.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was thinking along the same lines, but then again, how complex or difficult it would be to mint specific amount of NFTs or mint one every time you want to contribute. So why not use, at least for now, this aggregation layers that are available, like SourceCred or co-ordinate, or how they're called, and then just take this data and put it in a very small format, like a JSON format, validate it and put it as metadata on an like a Catalyst ID or Catalyst Passport NFT that is individual to each person or to each member that is within the Catalyst community and has a like a Cardano address or an idea scale account, I don't know, but some kind of unique identifier, and then just have them aggregate this contribution data as metadata on his NFT. And then later on, you can say, okay, you can vest this NFT for a certain amount of time, and then you'll be able to access a faucet where you can take voting tokens, non-binding or binding, depending on the votes you're accessing the faucet for. And then according to the amount of reputation or metadata you collected, you get more or less tokens for this specific voting. And if they're non-binding, you get them back after the voting. And if they're binding, you could lose these tokens, someone else gaining them, like a game mechanism, and then making it a bit more to incentivize making the right decision on the vote. But this can also be done later on with this NFT. You can like build these voting faucets to have then voting tokens for specific voting actions. But the NFT itself always remains the same, and each voting you can set the parameters for what specific reputation data gets more voting weight and so on and so forth.
I mean, if everyone likes, I mean, I know we've very briefly covered NFT, and we probably can go back on another meeting and discuss that. And also, did you want to cover fungible tokens as well in Mindflow, or is that, or have you felt that you've already covered that?
Well, no, we haven't covered that, but there's another topic that I would like to get into. So the reason why we said that this is an experiment for a larger catalyst-wide recognition system that could be implemented in the future is that we've been thinking about that idea for quite some time now, specifically with non-funded proposals in mind. So we identified that group as being the most in need of a sort of a form of recognition, because obviously funded proposals get the funding, CAs get the rewards, VCAs get rewards, but it's possible that you put in tens, possibly even hundreds of hours into a proposal, and you end up with nothing to show for it, and that could potentially be demoralizing and make you want to not participate in the catalyst process in the future. So
yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead if you.
I agree in general, but also, I mean, this is not the state now, but in the perfect world, ideally the CA input and feedback would be so valuable that you would only need to tweak it and review it a little bit and then put out an even better proposal with a higher chance of getting the next funding. But since the quality of the CAs is quite different, this is not the case now, but ideally that would be what you're getting out of, at least in that sense.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you, the Mindflow, is broadening out this kind of, if you think of the awards ceremony that you're doing at the Idea Fest, to broaden that out to reward people who haven't been funded, and maybe that might be a disincentive to engage further with the communities. So that you're just trying to re-engage people by compensating them, not necessarily compensating them, but giving them some recognition for what their effort has done.
Exactly.
So Tyler, what do you think that's a good idea, or any thoughts on that?
I think it's complicated.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It certainly is, but
no, I want to expand on that statement a little bit. I think even like funded proposals have that problem too with burnout, when people put a lot of time into something and then they don't actually see any sort of monetary reward because they decided to move on from a project. And I mean, I think that's probably going to continue to happen if more projects take the DAO format as like how they want to get funded and build really like a marketing campaign around collaborative work. And you get a lot of people excited about that. And then if the funding for the proposal actually isn't enough to compensate or make everyone who's contributing feel good about what they've done, then that you're going to run into that same problem. I think community advisors right now are way overworked. I think most recently, the most recent proposals, they're only seeing maybe like 4 or 5 CAs rank each proposal that's voted on. And in my opinion, it's probably not enough to actually get enough data for the public to make an informed decision in the first place. So I think there needs to be something, even for CAs and veteran CAs, there definitely needs to be some additional incentive to get more people wanting to take that role within the system than actually incentivizing more proposals. I think we need to incentivize better proposals that focus on tangible results. It's like tangible product and tangible path forward, a roadmap that makes sense, and then incentivize the community advisors to really critique that aspect of it. I think a rewards, like some sort of I don't even like that term, comprehensive, anymore.
No, really?
The unstoppable self-organizing collective, wasn't it? That the phrase?
I mean, I think there's been discussion in the community. I'm not sure if Jonathan, you're aware of this, of more kind of a shift towards more goal-orientated proposals. So that instead of putting out a proposal instead of just leaving the proposal to the proposer, you're looking for people to achieve certain goals in the community, and then that becomes the proposal process. Is that? I don't know if you feel. Is that what you're thinking of, Tyler, as well? You were sort of referencing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a reward system that takes into account fungible tokens and NFTs that I guess better incentivizes the entire process would improve everything. And maybe that involves creating more rewards for CAs, so more CAs, so that within the broader community, it's like, oh wait, maybe right now it makes more sense for me to invest my time as a CA because that's going to result in more catalyst rewards in general in this NFT, rather than everyone try to put out their proposal and then not actually have enough CAs in the community to review the proposals, and then it kind of turns into a situation where whoever can kind of just make the best marketing message might have the best chance of winning a proposal.
So I suppose I don't know if you think, Jonathan, there may be a place for kind of having like kind of goal-orientated prizes in the Catalyst system.
Yeah, I definitely see that there's a need for varying degrees of reward. So if we are and that's where the ideal rewarding is in fungibles, or like Dan was saying, in voting rights, because if you've actually got a reward that is representative of the amount of effort or the goals that they're achieving, then that's far more fair and equitable than just an NFT that can increase massively in value with no further contribution, for example. What I was thinking as well is if we can actually tie all this sort of intangible activity and metrics and NFT activity down into something like SourceCred.
Yeah.
Can it be a feeder, metric into that then starts just.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's, if I can just steer the agenda towards SourceCred, because I just wanted to. I mean,
just a couple of clarifications. So when I said we identified that, maybe I didn't express it clear enough as a starting point. So unfunded proposals as a starting point, we would be obviously looking at all roles within the Catalyst process to track and to award. It was just that even at the beginning of Fund 3, we've seen, and we've constantly seen since then, proposals complaining, voicing their concerns that they are putting in a lot of effort into creating their proposals, and mathematically speaking, most of them are not going to get anything out of it. And all the rest of the groups already get something out of the system. So that's why we identified that group.
And one approach to that is through, let's say, minting recognition NFTs. But I think that could be seen as I think Dan is touching on this. I don't want to speak to that. That could be seen as inefficient if you're because you're kind of having to backward account on what's been recognized. So if we could move on to SourceCred now, because as Jonathan and some others know, we had a meeting with Daniello of Aragon, I think it is, and members of Swarm, and Tyler was there from Secret Dex as well. And we discussed implementation of SourceCred within Catalyst, and we possibly starting a test server or a test channel. Where we would start that, we could start it in Swarm, we could start it in the Catalyst Alliance, possibly as well. And then we also discussed a wide, more strategic, long-term things. But what's more relevant to what's discussing here, okay, we've got 10 minutes, is how we, Jonathan, like you mentioned, like there's this Kudos system that we've got running in the Catalyst Alliance. We could do something like that in a channel potentially, or on a test server, which either the Catalyst Alliance could engage with. I don't know. What do you think, Dan? Is that possible? And could we do that? And how would you do that, Dan?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. I mean, we would have to set up a SourceCred test server, then write some or tackle down some parameters we would like to see triggered in Discord, for example, the Kudos bot. And then maybe we could even grab the message after the Kudos bot and put this in one data set into SourceCred. I don't know, I haven't yet played around with the test server, so this is the first thing that we probably need to do, set it up. I can ask a friend of mine to help me with that. He's my IT admin. I think he has some space left on the server. Otherwise, if anyone already has this done or like to do this, be my guest. But then I think we should start very simple with just basic emoji reactions, maybe 1 or 2, and then see how much other data besides emojis we can get out of Discord. And obviously see how well GitHub integrates with the SourceCred. So what kind of data we can grab from there, and what we can do with it, and how we can, in what kind of format we can transform it into, because obviously the less metadata storage we use, the better. But yeah, that's for now, it's not the highest priority, I guess.
I think it'd be probably accessible for most people if we use Discord. And I think Daniello mentioned that we could just start as small as a channel, didn't he, Tyler, in a Discord?
Yep, that's right. You could start, just set one channel as the test channel, and then have the bot or SourceCred only have access to that channel initially. Yeah. That was my understanding from that call anyway.
Yeah, but we may need to reach out to people who can help us with setup I mean, I don't know if Secret Decks would be interested in a wider collaboration there with on SourceCred.
Definitely, I think so. I mean, if we set it up on our server, we're going to look into if we can have like separate instances for the different servers or for the different projects, or if it runs on one instance. I don't know. I have to check it. But if we set it up for Secret Decks, we can also set it up for Catalyst or Swarm, obviously. Yeah.
I have a question regarding SourceCred. So from what I understand, it's solely based on kudos and reactions that we give to each other. That's
my basic understanding now. Yeah.
That's my understanding as well.
How can we make sure that it remains fair? Like, let's say, for example, Dan and Tyler, they like each other and they keep giving themselves kudos, right?
Yeah,
they don't like Jonathan and they won't give him enough kudos. How can we make sure that he will receive the kudos?
Sorry. I mean,
we probably need. It's a system that needs tweaking, according to Daniello in the conversation. It's kind of like you set up your parameters, you run a 2-week sprint with it, and then you evaluate at the end of that week. You figure out where there's gaps, where people are abusing it, and then you modify those parameters based off of that information. And it's not going to be perfect. It's going to help automate some of the problem of I guess capturing organic value, but it's not going to solve the whole problem. There's still going to be manual inspection of work that's being done, and that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
I posted a link to the meeting we had with Daniello New Mindflow if you want to watch that. It's also time-stamped, so you can go through that as well. But he explains that on its own, it's just like with any tracking system, like a Kudos system as well, on its own, it can be quite basic. You need a kind of a process of discovery to use it, and you need to discover, well, the cultural discovery of value. So what are community values? And that's going to change from communities to community. So I mean, I don't want to speak for Daniela, so if you go and watch the video, I recommend it because it's kind of giving you a lot of background in terms of how it can be set up more from a social perspective.
I mean, for Secret Decks also, we were planning on having a kind of validator pool before actually grabbing this data and allowing the person to mint or to integrate it as metadata into the NFT. And in the beginning, this validator pool will be consisting of the core members who will check the data and see if there's obvious logical missteps or anything like this, and also revise the process after like each certain set period. I mean, in the beginning, it will be shorter periods, and then depending on how well this runs, it can be longer periods.
I just want to say, that if we get cut off, I'll post a new Zoom link into chat, but just continue on talking, and then we are re-record as we post from the Zoom chat if you want to continue talking. So, because obviously we're getting into a flow here. So carry on, new flow.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, what's our ultimate goal? Because I think that if our ultimate goal is to capture value being generated in the Catalyst community, in the Catalyst process as a whole, going down the path of SourceCred might be a dead end, because we would only, even if it works flawlessly at its best, we only get to see people's interactions or value being recognized on various Discord servers or GitHub being associated with Catalyst. It doesn't integrate with idea scale. It doesn't integrate with a system of tracking perhaps deliverables on funded proposals or CA work. So that's why our stance is that we would need, and we're aware that this is a very complex project. It would be a very complex project, but I think if we go down this path from early on, we might save ourselves some headache when we would need to inevitably migrate from SourceCred or any other third-party solution, if we start small and but start to flesh out to build a custom solution.
But that's the idea. That's why we use SourceCred and then migrate this data over immediately to the NFT so that we can drop SourceCred any minute for a custom built solution that will take a lot of time. And I think SourceCred is, at least for what we're doing at SecretX now, the first logical step. And so the idea was to just try it out and see if it also works in Catalyst on the way.
Yeah, if I can just say, hold on.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a
we're going to get cut off in a minute, so I just need to. Yeah. I mean, I've just answered that new Mindflow. The whole strategy of applying SourceCred is that you would start very simple. You start in a very specific area with a process of you would define, say, what you were trying to achieve very discreetly in a single channel, say on Discord. Let's say it was a certain activity. It could be related, right, for example, around Idea Fest, for example, something very self-contained. And then you would do something, I think Dan referred to this, you would do something called a parallel implementation, where you would track use in SourceCred, but then you would keep a parallel paper record as a kind of sanity check to check if there's any distortions taking place in the SourceCred process. Because as Anna Maria pointed out, you could have people gaming the system, and people will try and game the system, and there will be distortions, massive distortions. And the more complex it gets, the more the distortions get out of control. So you do still have to start simple, and you have to do, it's just a bit like getting our feet wet, really. The community, it's just starting. It's not, we would just have to start simple and move on. Yeah, so we're just discussing whether we should have ongoing meetings about tracking, and Jonathan was just talking about the issues with that.
Yeah, so I was in two minds about to reward, we really need to have some sort of tracking in place, and yet we're all members of a community that's hot on anonymity and the ability to be self-sovereign over your identity information. So if we don't have some kind of feeding in from multiple parties into whatever actions take place, SourceCred, NFT, burning, creation, all the rest of it, then there'll be no transparency, at least, into what is happening. Because there are lots of different ways for tracking to go on at the moment. So if we see them, we should probably talk about them. And at least if we're making it aware to a wider working group, like the Catalyst Alliance or whatever springs from that effort, I think that's a healthy thing to do. And if we, and furthermore, if we can design these tools to allow us to remain either anonymous or pseudonymous in terms of rewards, that probably should be an option for people as well. Those who don't want to create a recognition for themselves with their public reputation, being aligned to their reputation. So, there are plenty of private people in the community, but we do want to reward them, because, well, the only way we'll keep a healthy community is if we are rewarding people who are on the margins, bringing them in. There's got to be something to
if we had
but that's the idea with sorry, Steve.
So if we had ongoing meetings, then we could obviously bring in people like, is it Vladimir you was talking about, people who weren't able to be present here, and obviously we can't get everyone together all the time. So if we could meet once a week and then bring in people, say, do you think the Catalyst Alliance is the natural place to do that, Jonathan?
I think it's the place that I've seen with most big parties represented in some way, shape or form so far that I'm aware of, but it's so
sorry, Dan, you're gonna sorry, Dan, you were gonna say something.
I forgot.
Okay.
I was looking over the references again, and I really like the joint seeds. And I was thinking also that if you have this digital identity NFT, and now I remember, it doesn't have to be like the address that you actually copy the data or that holds the NFT. That your passport doesn't have to be public. I mean, it can be. It doesn't have to show where you grab this data to. You as a user with a pseudo anonymous or anonymous handle can produce the reputation data, have it verified by the community, and then you can put it on an NFT of your liking. You can put it on an NFT that no one knows where it's stored. So it's basically anonymous. You wouldn't have to have all the voting, or like maybe there are specific voting rights tied to public identity. I don't know, could be some cases. But otherwise, if this is not the case, then you would have the same voting rights as someone who has a public passport. So that's the idea that we want to do with SourceCred, because we're trying to create a kind of a disco. I like the term, by the way, distributed cooperative for artists. And for artists, it's very important to stay anonymous. And yeah. So
I mean, in my opinion, do you think it's a good idea to have a regular forum which brings in tracking and contribution issues from across the community? Is that something that you'd be interested in contributing to or taking part in?
Yeah, definitely. For our part, we were talking about this for a while with certain members of the swarm, and we're actually even thinking of perhaps submitting a proposal in the future. Like I said, take it slowly and identify a subset of the Catalyst community that needs the most to be rewarded, and grow it from there. And continuing with these type of weekly or bi-weekly or whatever meetings until we get to a point where we actually build or start building this kind of system would be a very good idea. So yeah,
yeah, it could be weekly or bi-weekly. I mean, I don't mind being the point of organization for that, because I've created a Git book for the Catalyst Alliance, and I've already transferred in from some SourceCred material there. And I need to talk to SourceCred about that. And I want to sort of, that could be a natural place to put resources that that the work, let's say, of this working party could document there, and also see, as Jonathan, you were saying, like adding some transparency to what people are doing, and so maybe having some common not oversight, but a community view on these things. I don't know, and also then there may be contributors like SourceCred doing something under the umbrella of that or associated with that in terms of small tests with SourceCred. Tyler, I don't know what you think of that. Or
well, I think Newman, you were Anna Maria and Radish, you guys were talking about like how can we want to identify the one problem right away and find a solution for that, and part of that was minting those NFTs for proposers that weren't funded. That was kind of the first problem. First thing you wanted to kind of like incentivize or reward, right? And that's a little bit, and that's different than trying to find a solution that quantifies value that a community in general contributes in kind of like an organic way through public communication. They're kind of two separate, I guess, issues. They're different, maybe not separate, but they're different, right?
Well,
go ahead.
Our ultimate goal was to scale up the system to the whole Catalyst community, be it people engaged with Discord, and that can be captured by SourceCred, as you mentioned, but a lot of the Catalyst community is not engaged with Discord and is only engaging with the Catalyst process on idea scale, for instance. So that's why we thought that perhaps starting small with even a manual system at the beginning of distributing these rewards would be a first step towards something along those lines. What I wanted to mention about SourceCred is if SourceCred is implemented on various Discord servers related to Catalyst, but then if you brand the contributions being recognized as something that represent the Catalyst community as a whole, then you would risk possibly a lot of, I don't know, backlash from the people who are not involved and tarnishing the name of this Catalyst, general Catalyst type of contribution. Does that make sense?
But it will be tested on the Alliance server, right? Not on the overall Catalyst server, or on the Swarm, maybe.
I think the idea is to have it in a very discrete channel, not open to the whole server, for a very limited purpose to start with, as my understanding, just to test it. And also, in terms of the working part, I just see that could be just one thing to document. It's not to replace any other system. Like I think AdaGov are also, and I am still in contact with AdaGov on this, because I helped with their documentation repository, funny enough. But and Ro, who's just got funding, he's going to use SourceCred too as well. So, and it's just being aware of what's going on across the community. So with you going forward with Swarm, in partnership with Swarm, I mean, that's really exciting, you know, and it's just keeping track of what you're doing as well, you know. So I mean I think that's what I was hearing from you, Jonathan, was this kind of community view on things is quite important.
Yeah, and I think that the wider that is, and the wider awareness it has, the better, because you throw your lot in with Facebook, and we all have done for decades, but you don't know where it's going to end up. So if we can actually, make it healthier from the beginning, and that's going to be, a good approach. What I'm hoping we'll find with SourceCred, for example, is that we can, maybe we can create APIs that will interact with the various, sources of data that we want to feed into it. So it's not just limited to Discord. It could be taking idea scale, Kudos or whatnot. Sorry, Tyler.
Yeah, I was actually gonna expand exactly on that point. That's what I wanted to talk about. It's a SourceCred. It's a open source. It's a social algorithm for basically quantifying contributions. Most people seem to be using it in Discord and GitHub right now. Aragon's starting to use it to with Discord and GitHub, and then to create an automated system where it actually mints a token. It distributes that token based off of SourceCred activity. And then I don't see why you wouldn't be able to integrate it with idea scale. But with that being said, do we think idea scale is a long-term solution for proposals?
Hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine everything kind of like being an open source thing that's coming on, like almost on chain for a lot more of it, and just more of like an integrated system in general. I see idea scale as kind of a it's something that was already built, and that the ideas folks are willing to work with the IOHK folks and kind of customize what they've done to kind of like test out ways of voting. And then maybe the long-term goal is to see what happens in idea scale, and then apply those learnings to Voltaire when the actual Cardano governance layer really does get launched. So,
I mean, I sort of see this, if we want a bit of a word called this working party, maybe think of a better name for it. Is that, I mean, I think what Anna Marie and what Rara you're doing may the lessons learned from that may inform what the lessons learned from SourceCred, and the lessons learned from SourceCred may help you as well. You know, it's kind of, it's not complementary. They are different things in a way. It's kind of different approaches, and that's interesting. It's interesting to compare the outcomes of our different approaches. You know, your approach, well, we're not presuming your approach, because we're still defining that, aren't we? That recognition and everything, as against the kind of, for want of a better word, SourceCred maybe seems to be more about value discovery on a very small scale, in a parallel implementation in a very small setting, you know, and then developing that forward. So, and then we haven't spoken to other people in the community like Vladimir and other people who are actually doing contribution potentially as well.
And for your case, it's a bit like a more tangible data, because you can see who didn't get proposed, and it's non-contentious. So it's very obvious that either you get funded or you didn't get funded. So it's a completely different scenario background for what we have. It's like one comment may have been valuable at a certain time from a certain person or not, and to what extent, and so on. So there's a lot of it's a different backdrop to how you can gather this data. So we need something like SourceCred, which for your case is totally overkill, because you can get the data in a much simpler way. But still, at some point, we will need to engage with both systems, so it makes sense to have this working group look at.
Well, Gritesh, can I touch back on your idea about the NFTs for Anna Maria's as well? I'm sure the NFT for the proposals, right? Is the idea to give an NFT to every single person that submits a proposal? Or would it, or maybe it could be something where, like, as the proposal improves, it's a system where they get another NFT that represents like something being met, some sort of they have a really great roadmap, or their deliverables are really strong and they have a path forward with those.
I was just thinking of they did get voted, but they didn't get funded, like these proposals.
Yeah, that's a good one. So like one that voted, it did well with votes, but for it, they needed a huge budget, so it just didn't.
Or not a huge, but there was not enough left or something.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah, because Gimba Labs and WADA both succumbed to that, haven't they?
Yeah. Gimba didn't get funded?
Yeah, this time around.
No. The money went to NFT DAO.
The metadata standard?
Don't say it out loud.
That's not even. Yeah. So, getting back to the discussion, I really wanted to stress that but the unfunded proposals was just the very first small step. So that's not the scope at all. That's just a very
the most in need, so to say.
We identified that as being the most in need group, and that's why we see it as the very first step, and precisely because of what you pointed out, Dan, because that would be very easy to track data. We could start with that and perhaps then build another layer of perhaps SourceCred. And Dor mentioned, actually, when you mentioned APIs, I remember that Dor mentioned looking into opening up a lot of the APIs for idea scale. And if that would be, I think, ideal if we could grab that data and implement it into SourceCred on a custom basis.
Just on the data access issue, I was in a discussion earlier today with the Catalyst School, and we're talking about getting access to IOHK data, which can be quite difficult. But now we have circle representation. We can put pressure directly on IOHK through the circle. So I'll just mention that as a point. So again, that's something that these cross-group working parties can bring, because through our network, like for example, through say Felix or whoever who's going to be participating in certain circles with the Cardano Foundation will be there, IOHK will be there, representatives, so we can put pressure on to get, for example, access to data that we could use. So to say that, yeah.
Going back to our recognition system and this easier to capture data, I think our proposal, unfunded proposal system is still in the ideation stage, so that's still an experiment that is probably far off, but we'll have the results from how the experiment with the Idea Fest went. And there we're looking at multiple groups and multiple types of recognitions based on NFTs and on fungible tokens as well. So we're planning to distribute fungible tokens to the organizers and to the attendees as well, so to the public that attends. And we're in talks with Kyle Solomon. I think you assisted to some of those talks, Stephen, yesterday, about a way to implement Heidrun, the system that he built on, I think, Fund 3 Catalyst funding, to come up with a database that will allow only certain individuals with custom keys to access the token faucet. And you can set it up so that the distribution of tokens is tied into those keys and can only be redeemed once, and the amount that is redeemable is, like I said, tied into those keys, and we can potentially capture some of that data. Well, it will be basically limited to 2 groups, one for the organizers and one for the attendees at first, but that could also serve as a lesson going forward to how fungible tokens can be distributed to.
I think communicating some of this is why I'm really interested in documenting some of this just at a higher level, say in the Catalyst Alliance Gitbook, under a section that we could have under the tracking working party, so then we can communicate to the wider community. Think issues like that. I think Mikhail was talking about whether you're talking about cryptographic keys, whether they could be anonymized according to access to the faucet and things like that. And to a lot of people, they won't understand what that means. And if we can communicate that to people and to understand that in context, okay, then we can maybe move forward some of the narrative going on in the community about understanding. I mean, I don't know if you think, Jonathan, I think that's an important thing as well. It's like kind of educating people on what we're talking about in terms of tracking, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about the nations that keep banning crypto, you know, on a regular cycle, you know, that it's probably illegal for them to be holding crypto and engaging with the blockchain community is, you know, just going to be as black flaggable as anything else. So if we give them the opportunity to, you know, engage with a reputation system in an anonymous way, then that's, you know, that's really valuable. And if we can have that, I really like that idea of a faucet that's based on keys that you can issue. It sort of places the onus on the individual to go and retrieve their NFTs as well, which I think is important too, because you've got some kind of idea then on who is wanting to draw down from the community. Do you know what I mean? And that could be an indicator of, you know, who's looking to establish their livelihood on the back of Cardano or Catalyst or whatever, which again is, you know, hugely valuable information, just to talk, you know, to hold up in front of the world, or, you know, even just to IOHK for now, to say, look, this is the sort of the attention that that you're getting, that the blockchain's getting. Really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing we haven't discussed on the agenda, I think there was an item, I think it was Maria again, on consideration of Fund 6. But I mean, you already, Anna Maria and Rawas, you already touched on potentially developing a funding application at some point. Secret Dex, I don't know if we are considering funding as well at some point, you know. So
I mean, when I looked at the references that you collected, I was thinking, man, it would be nice to have a bit of funding to develop a voting app for binding votes, on-chain binding votes, where we could play around with how is it that you can have a faucet, as I mentioned, that distributes binding votes, and how does it work with people losing their votes and afterwards maybe able to redeem them if they won, so they doubled their votes and then they can redeem them for extra reputation because they had foresight of doing the right decision. And this reputation, again, if this decision actually creates value in return, this reputation that was created then by the vote actually increases, for example.
So it's kind of a predictive, it's like a predictive market in voting together.
Exactly.
Where, if you're making decisions that are leading to value creation and those pass, then that increases your voting power. Is that, do I understand that right?
Yeah, precise. And yeah, that would be very good because we could cooperate on this. We could use it in Secret Dex, in many other autonomous or distributed organizations, and that could be something we can talk about or think about next meeting.
So I'll just call an end to the official meeting, but we can just discuss what we want now, if you like. So we just call that a cut. You know,
I'll stop there.